everybody, welcome to my video for April 1st, 2022. Now, I've been thinking a lot lately about my channel and how I get my viewers and stuff. And I thought, well, today, April 1st, start of a new month, spring is right around the corner. I'm thinking of changing up the format of this show a little bit. So instead of my movie collection update, I think I'm going to start retitling these as my underwear collection update. I thought that would work better for the viewers. I thought that would just give people more of what they want to see, and it's where my true passion is really kind of diverting to. So to start off the update here, we've got the cougar bait. It's a long-standing inside joke. This was the craziest Christmas gift I've ever received. And it's April 1st, it's April Fool's Day. You know I am bullshitting with you. Thank you for watching. Yeah, let's get into it. I got a lot of stuff here. Probably going to divide a lot of people on a lot of this stuff. There's some things I have here that many people really like that I didn't, and some vice versa. So, I don't know, we got kind of an odd assortment here in that regard, so we'll see how it goes. Starting off, these were two Vinegar Syndrome releases from February. And the first one, I had always known about this. It's a cult classic, but the DVD was always so expensive, so hard to come by. So I finally took it upon myself and picked up Drop Dead Fred. A movie I really never knew too much about. And upon watching the Vinegar Syndrome release of it here, I would say I thought this movie was garbage. It was just, I did not grow up with this. Everyone I know that really loves this movie, which is a decent amount of people I've seen online have. And then I also know people that did not like this. And those are the people that did not grow up with it. So me coming through the guise of someone who did not grow up with this, I just thought this was stupid. I get that the character Fred is supposed to be annoying, but he was just too much so. The story, it kind of plays ping pong between being like G-rated and R-rated with somebody. It's just kind of a weird one. I have to say it's just not, it was before my time. I didn't grow up with it. Now at 24, sitting there watching this, just not my kind of movie, guys. I'm glad I finally saw it. I have it for the collection now. That Vinegar, as always, they did a great job with the release. Just not my thing. And then the other one I got from them was their archive release of this movie called Wolfpack, which I could not find any information about online at all anywhere. This was a weird one. I mean, very evidently a low-budget film. Even the Blu-ray transfer of it, you could tell the scan they were working with wasn't even really in the best shape. You have a movie about this high school that becomes fascist. That's like the big theme of it. And I bought this thinking it was going to be more in the vein of Tough Turf or The New Kids, where it was an action revenge kind of story. That's not what this is. This is a really strange political allegory. It's mostly social based. There's not really a lot of action. But it's so strange and bizarre that there was a little bit of a charm to it that I was actually kind of glad I saw it. Because I never would have heard about this or seen it otherwise. I couldn't find any information about it prior to this Blu-ray. So good on Vinegar Syndrome for putting it out. I mean, there's some really crazy scenes in here involving a DeLorean. The ending scene, like before the fade out, is bizarre. So weird film. But you know what? I actually kind of enjoyed my time with it because it was not like anything I had really seen before. I expected like Tough Turf, The New Kids, but it was completely different from that, and it was something I really can't describe. So not top quality or anything, but as just a weird film that I never would have heard of otherwise. It was, fun B-movie political allegory directed by a porn director. So Now this, I know I'm going to divide some people on. Kino Lorber is currently having their huge sale March into April and while supplies last, so I recently ordered like 5 things from that, none of which have arrived yet, so the next update you're probably going to be seeing a lot of Kino Lorber stuff. I got this for this update. I had vaguely heard of this in passing. I know it's about a series of books called The Destroyer, which are supposedly really violent and graphic and R-rated, and so I was curious to give this a shot just to see what it was like. Remo Williams, The Adventure Begins. I know I've got a few friends on YouTube that really enjoy this. They think it's underrated. It's a shame it never took off into a series. I thought this was terrible. I like Fred Ward a lot, whether it be Tremors, Sweet Home Alabama, Best Men, Corky Romano even. He's good. Like, I really like Fred Ward, and he does fine with this material he's given, but then you have a white guy playing an Asian sensei, which was just awkward, and his performance of it was just not that good. Everyone says their chemistry was the highlight of the film. I didn't think they had any chemistry. Wilford Brimley appears for like 5 minutes, sitting at his desk in one location, probably filmed all of his scenes in a day. It's 2 hours long, which this thing did not. It felt like I was watching a pilot for a TV show that somehow got stretched to 2 hours long. Because it's rated PG-13. There's hardly any blood in it. Most of the violence is just like fisticuffs and martial arts. And then when the comedy's there, it's just like a stupid sitcom 10-year-old kid humor. And I'm thinking, who is this made for? It's PG-13. It's not funny enough to be a comedy. It feels like a sitcom. It's nowhere near violent. I don't even know where the 13 comes from. This should be PG. It feels like a kid's film. And it's 2 hours long. The first hour of the film is nothing but his training. You get this scene on the Statue of Liberty, which is the only decent scene in the entire film. And even that is kind of dragged out. It's mostly just acrobatics around the scaffolding. Cool stunts, but it happens in the middle of the film, and there's not a lot. The climax is very lame. I still don't even understand what the plot of this even was. If you guys are... I know this has a cult following, but it's a cult that I'm not a member of. Appreciate you if you're a fan of this, if you think it's underrated, but this one missed all the marks for me, and it does not surprise me at all that this thing failed at the box office, because not a good one. And this is another one where I'm probably going to piss a lot of people off, because this has like a 7.6 or something on IMDb, which is high for IMDb. And everyone I know that has seen this loves it. They say this is a modern masterpiece. They love it. And once again, I'm not trying to be a contrarian or anything, but Drive with Ryan Gosling. It's so slow. Like, most of this is just synthwave music while Ryan Gosling... Like, it's very artsy. There's bloody action, sure, when it comes up, but the story is so slow moving. It's all style and no substance. I did not think it was that suspenseful, not in the slightest. I didn't care about any of the characters. It wasn't that thrilling. Even in the action scenes that did happen, there was some really shitty CGI blood in all of it, and really, this is like a 7.6 on IMDb, and this amazing... Maybe it's because it came out in 2011, before the Stranger Things resurgence of 80s nostalgia, and people were like, ooh, 80s nostalgia, ooh, this is unique. But me seeing this now, I'm like, this was just vapid. Like, it was artsy, it was dull, it was slow, it was boring. again, I'm not trying to be a contrarian here. And I know people watching this are probably screaming at the screen right now, but I didn't like this one, guys. I'm sorry. I wanted more action and less. Now, good news, here's one I actually enjoyed. It's an 80s comedy starring Judd Nelson, pre-Breakfast Club, called Making the Grade. I enjoyed this one a lot, especially for Andrew Dice Clay. This is a very early appearance of Andrew Dice Clay, who is playing a character called the Dice Man. So he's essentially playing himself in this, and with the way this ends, or at least the way his part of the story ends, it almost becomes like an origin story of Andrew Dice Clay, as you know, which is hilarious. There's a John Travolta Staying Alive parody in this. It happens for no reason whatsoever, but it makes the entire film completely worthwhile. I never gave Andrew Dice Clay enough credit for when he was young, how similar he actually looks to John Travolta in this. So that scene alone won this. It's not a perfect movie. The third act is kind of flawed. Like, some problems I have, I will say, this girl right here, she should have been removed from the film entirely. They do this really forced love subplot between the two of them. I could not buy them for a second. She was completely bland as a character, and every scene that involved the two of them brought the movie to a grinding halt. I wanted more Animal House college shenanigans, and the second half of the film mostly gets devoted to the romance between these two. I think she should have been taken out of the movie entirely. You did not need that love subplot that unfortunately takes up too much screen time and slows the movie down. And even this character right here was the most unlikable, annoying person. Like, I hated this character. You're not supposed to like this character, but this character was just annoying and obnoxious, and he gets no comeuppance in the end, like this rich jagoff. It's like when you hit the 80-minute mark, it's almost as if they said, "Oh shit, we gotta end this." But how? Like the last 15 minutes feel really rushed. Like they forgot they had to end it, and they were, oh wow, how do we end it? And then it promises a sequel that never came to be because this too flopped. So my main problems with this are with the third act. Like, you put a more grand, satisfying conclusion on this. I think it definitely would have helped. Take the romance with this chick out of it entirely. But the movie's not without its merits, especially for the first hour when it's mostly the Animal House type shenanigans. You got Dan Schneider in there, who's a lot of fun. You know, Ricky from Better Off Dead. An amazing soundtrack, too. You don't hear this one get talked about too much, but despite the flaws towards the third act and stuff, I still had a lot of fun with Making the Grade, though. And if you're an 80s fan who still hasn't seen it, I'd definitely give it a go. It's a harmless, enjoyable film. Now this one, though, I absolutely loved. This is a film that I had never heard of until a month ago, roughly. I was just kind of browsing around. I came across this. The title caught my eye. I'm like, huh, that's interesting. And I didn't even really know the plot. I knew a bare, basic, like, one-sentence synopsis of what the plot was. So I decided to take a chance. This Blu-ray was only $5 new, like through Amazon Prime. New, it was like $5.99, I think. So really cheap. So I'm like, oh, let's check this out. So I love these kinds of suspense thrillers. That's my favorite genre, suspense thriller. Like, I just love thrillers, movies that keep me on the edge of my seat and stuff. And this is a British production from 2011 called A Lonely Place to Die. I had never heard of this. I had never heard a single person talk about it. I had never seen any coverage of it. This one had completely evaded my radar. And I went into it mostly blind, not knowing what to expect, and I absolutely loved every second of this. This is a complete, criminally underrated gem, especially here in the States. There's only a trailer on this, which is from what I understand, the UK DVD has like a making of documentary and a commentary with the brothers who are the writers, directors of it. What, IFC Midnight, why could you not have ported those onto this? Getting back to the film itself, though, this was amazing. As soon as the plot gets going, it never stops. The pacing of this moves at a lightning fast rate. All of the actors are great. You know, our 5 leads are incredibly likable. They all do a great job. Our villains, the main one of which is played by Sean Harris, is cold. Just a serious, dark villain. He tells a story towards the end of this. Him and another character are sitting in a pub, and Sean Harris tells this story about this former kid that he had kidnapped. It is like the most chilling story. It rivals Gary Busey's story in Surviving the Game. But no, this, I urge you, odds are you probably haven't heard of it, because I never heard of this before stumbling across it. I recommend going into this with as little knowledge as possible, because a lot of the plot directions and a lot of the turns it makes you don't really see coming. And the mountain climbing, this, especially for a lower budget film, the cinematography in this is outstanding. It's a huge love letter to Scotland. Huge love letter to Scotland, as the majority of it takes place in the Scottish Highlands, the mountains, with some of the most gut-wrenching cinematography when they're doing these mountain climbing scenes, and going all through the wilderness. And then when you get towards the ending, there's this big Scottish folk festival in this village that really brings the whole Scottish theme together, and the whole climax, the whole finale of this is insane. Like, it is a roller coaster of a film. You're following these characters on a journey that comes to this crazy ending and this crazy finish. Everything about this I loved. Criminally underrated movie. I strongly urge all of you to check it out. Gets a high recommendation from me. A Lonely Place to Die. Alright, more positivity. See, what do you like more? Do you like it more when I'm shitting on movies that everybody likes, or when I'm praising movies nobody knows about? These are well known to a certain demographic, and that's certainly not my age demographic, but we have a Blu-ray double feature of Kelly's Heroes and Where Eagles Dare. These 2 World War II films starring Clint Eastwood. Kelly's Heroes is awesome. I mean, what can you say? Clint Eastwood, Telly Savalas, Don Rickles, Donald Sutherland, Carol O'Connor, Archie Bunker himself. Amazing cast. How can you not love Oddball? Hey, we're a little positive thinking, it's still up. Boom. No, it ain't. Like, it's a heist film. It's a light-hearted war comedy with a great theme song, great characters. Growing up with my dad and way back in the day with my grandpa, these 60s and 70s movies were always what we really got into, whether it be the car films of the 70s, which I show a lot of in these updates, the James Bond films. The 60s and the 70s was such an awesome time for action films and comedies, and they don't make men like these guys anymore. So Kelly's Heroes was awesome. Great heist film, great light-hearted war film with really nice comedic touches. Where Eagles Dare, I had heard of Kelly's Heroes previously. I had never heard of Where Eagles Dare. It was great. This was like a James Bond film. Completely. It's a long movie, but it never really got that boring. I was intrigued. It starts out with a lot of espionage, a lot of intrigue, and then for a film that's nearly 3 hours long, the entire last hour of Where Eagles Dare is non-stop action. Non-stop for the last hour. You've got crazy gunfights that are right out of an 80s action film. You have a cable car scene that is exactly like the type of thing you would have seen in a James Bond film of this period. So, yeah, this was a great purchase. I highly enjoyed the hell out of both of these. You have to be into that era of film, but if you want to go back, check some stuff out if you want to check out some good World War II films. Not realistic, mind you, not in the slightest, but these are both great, and they're just reminders of a bygone era in cinema and just with people in general and mindsets. These are two films that both have that let's go for it attitude, and it's great. Now this is a film I upgraded. Do I say movie or do I say film? I don't know. I'm always switching my words around. I had this on DVD and I figured I would pick this up. I always liked this movie. I just wanted to see it mainly for the features, and that's Brainscan. This is a cult classic. I know a lot of people like it, and I do really enjoy this movie. 90s as all hell. 90s punk rock alternative energy is all over this thing with Edward Furlong, Trickster, and the whole concept of virtual reality, which was peaking in the early to mid 90s. It is a bit slower moving of a film. There's only one major kill scene, and I think that's the biggest flaw. Although reading with watching the interview with the screenwriter, he addresses this was never meant as a slasher film, and the studio obviously changes stuff around, so it explains a lot of that. But it's a fun 90s film, but this is absolutely worth it just for the features. If this was ever a movie that you liked or casual a fan of, I would recommend this Scream Factory Blu-ray just for all the... An interview with the guy that plays the Trickster is great. The screenwriter interview is great. The best interview are the special effects artists, because they tell this story about how they got arrested, which is amazing. A funny story. This crazy deleted scene that was like out of John Carpenter's The Thing, practically, behind the scenes. Funny stuff. Scream Factory, you guys did well on Brainscan. I hope they start doing more Blu-rays of obscure 80s. I know they did Body Parts. I'd like to get that one day. Or The Borrower, I think, was another. So the Scream Factory, they had their decent share, but I haven't seen as many of the classic 80s era movies on their release schedule lately. So I'd like to see more like this from Scream Factory. Now this one, okay, I need to explain. Not a single person watching this is going to know what the hell this is. Story time. Let me take you back to when I was a freshman in college, my first ever semester. I had to take a science class, and I didn't want to just do the basic biology or chemistry or physics. I was looking at the more interesting ones that would still fit my degree. And the class I ended up taking was severe weather. Yes, they had a couple different meteorology classes, but the one I did was focused specifically on severe storms. And, so. And this was a DVD that we watched in that class when we were learning about hurricanes, and specifically Hurricane Katrina. And watching this in that class, this was the funniest, most out-of-the-world experience ever. And this, keep in mind, was October, November of 2015. So going back 7 years. Since 2015, I have been trying to track down the copies of this that were made and sold by the guy who filmed it, and I could just never find them. The website that sold them is defunct. Finally, after 7 years, one popped up on eBay, and I grabbed it. It's called Kennard versus Katrina. Now, what this is, it's a guy, this guy with all these candid pictures of himself on the case. There's a phone number here, but I don't know if you could still order through that or not. It's this guy who stayed behind in his home, New Orleans, Louisiana, or I don't know if he's in New Orleans. Where is... I don't remember specifically what town he was in. Somewhere in that area, New Orleans, getting devastated by Katrina. He stayed behind in his home. This really blue-collar, blunt redneck guy. So essentially what this is a 3-hour-long found footage movie that's not a movie, that's real, of just a guy, his home movie as he sits through Hurricane Katrina. Now that sounds like it should be terrifying, and to a degree it is, but this is hilarious because of his commentary. You get this middle-aged guy who at the beginning he's showing around the house, he's like showing all the pictures on the wall. This is my wife's sister-in-law. This right here is just soak in. He's showing the TV. Yeah, they're talking about that Hurricane Catherine or whatever the hell her name is. And even when you get deeper into it, when he lives on the top floor of a house, he opens the door to the downstairs, and it's like the stairs are underwater. He's trapped, and he's watching the houses next to him getting destroyed and swept away. And he's just sitting there like, oh, he just painted that shed not too long ago. Or he opens the door and his house is flooding, and he's like, I gotta find a way to stop this. Oh, shit. Never panicking. He just stays calm and just with this redneck commentary as he documents Hurricane Katrina destroying the world around him. And then at the end, like after all the destruction is done, he's sitting there like, I got some shrimp on the grill, and he starts bitching that his generator doesn't work. I'm bringing that into Home Depot to get a refund. This some bullshit. This is magical. This is the most magical thing in my collection, and I'm glad I got it. Just like with this is another film. See, I'm fired up now. Let's go. This is another film I have never heard of before in my life. The title sold me. I was expecting this to be absolute garbage, absolute crap. And to my surprise, I actually legitimately loved this movie. Not in an ironic way, not in a bad way. I legitimately thought this was a great film. Australiens. Have you ever heard of this before? Because I never have either. Seems to be a trend here with some of these. This was an independent Australian film. It co-stars, was written, directed, music, and all of the digital special effects were all done by one guy, Joe Bauer. Why has he not been hired to do more? Because while this was an independent film made for 15,000 Australian dollars, every single actor in this film clearly has their heart and soul into it. This is a passion project, and this is proof of ingenuity on a tight budget, and they made a damn creative movie out of it that has a legitimately funny script. Like seriously, the wit in this is legitimately hilarious. There are scenes in this that had me laughing out loud because the comedy was well executed, the timing, the dry wit, the running gags, which there are several, to things as crazy as one character keeps getting killed over and over again, inexplicably how they're surviving, or even smaller running jokes such as a character repeatedly has picture frames fall on him. This is there's a commentary on it. I have to rewatch this with that. This was great. Like I said, it's filled with heart and soul. It's clear this was a passion project they gave a shit about. This would go perfect with something like Paul. And that's a film I really enjoyed too. Paul, I saw that in the theater. The Simon Pegg, Nick Frost one, Paul, and this would go great with that. Unless you're Tasmanian. If you're from Tasmania, you might not like this because they do a lot of shit talking to Tasmania. But this was great. I was shocked by how good I actually thought that was. And just like this one, I bought this only for the prospect of Vin Diesel having hair. I didn't know this was based on a true story or anything, but it was funny. Like it was, I mean, it's not a balls out screwball comedy, but I was shocked at how good Vin Diesel was in this. He just has this charm in this role, who apparently the guy he's playing, based off the true story, requested, if you make this into a movie, I want the guy from The Fast and the Furious playing me. So the fact that that's how Vin Diesel got in this is just awesome. And some of the lines he has in this is so funny. It's really dry, it's really subtle of a film, because they stay with the, somewhat true to the story. Vin Diesel does great. There's a lot of comedy in this. It's a long movie. I think it could have been trimmed a little bit. But great, Ron Silver, just great people in this. Hey. My cat. But no, yeah. It was 99 cents. I bought it just for the prospect. Vin Diesel has hair. Didn't let me down at all. And speaking of Vin Diesel, The Fast and the Furious, every update, who are the two actors I buy a film from? Every update I show Paul Walker and Gary Busey. Here's the Paul Walker one, She's All That. And I'd actually seen this a while ago. My mom used to watch this a lot. It's a typical rom-com from the late 90s, early 2000s of another bygone era where you just have people who did not give a damn and they just went for it in the scripts. This has a crazy Matthew Lillard dance scene. It's got a pretty gross scene involving pizza. You've got Paul Walker being the biggest jackass I think he's ever played, but I've got a soft spot for this. I remember seeing bits and pieces of this when I was a kid, whenever my mom would watch it. It's one of those late 90s, early 2000s films that just smells like hairspray, like if that makes any sense. And it's a time capsule. And if you want to see Paul Walker being a huge asshole, something different, that's good enough for you. So, She's All That. It's not for everybody, but I've got a soft spot for it. Paul Walker movie, Gary Busey movie. Now this is a pretty hard to find one. From what I understand, this was not a TV movie, although it absolutely feels like one. It's a comedy called Foolin Around, which is okay. It's a Prince and the Pauper story, similar to Making the Grade, where Gary Busey is this blue-collar construction worker wannabe guy who goes to this like prep school because he wants to meet this girl. Just like what I said with Making the Grade, I think the romance stuff was probably the least interesting part of this. It feels like a TV movie. It's very sitcom-y. The music, the editing, it feels like a TV movie from 1980. It's not breaking any controversial grounds or anything. Tony Bennett is one of the highlights as a butler. Yes, madam. But this has an absolutely insane climax at the end that involves the Wienermobile and smashing a hang glider in through a church stained glass window. I can't hate it, especially when it's my boy Gary Busey. I can't hate it. It's a bootleg. I got William H. Macy, very young role of him too in there. It's enjoyable for what it is. It's not something I'm going to watch a lot, but for what it is. For Gary Busey being Gary Busey, which is my favorite thing in the world, it gave it to me. Ricochet! Denzel Washington, John Lithgow, and Ice-T. Another one I had heard about for a while, and I finally got around to seeing it. And this was a really solid thriller action film. A bit on the lengthy side, but it never became boring. Characters, I think, make weird decisions at times in this, but it gets brutal. Like, the prison break scene in this is absolutely brutal. And speaking of the prison, there's this scene involving John Lithgow and Jesse Ventura that just has to be seen to be believed. It is so batshit and out of nowhere, bonkers, that it makes the movie. And really satisfying ending, too, when they're climbing up. It's like a construction site with this cell tower. And I love Ice-T, talking about surviving the game, or even his part in Leprechaun in the Hood. Ice-T's a charismatic guy. I love watching Ice-T and stuff. So this was a great thriller. Denzel and Ice-T do great. And John Lithgow, just like, he's in top form here, just like he was in Cliffhanger. Great villain. He's got some fun kind of side people with him. If you could just forgive characters making questionable decisions and choices at a few intervals, and then great thriller. Really enjoyed Ricochet. Now this one was, I didn't really get too much out of this one, sad to say. It sounded interesting from the premise, but the execution of this was just weird. When is this from? 1999, called In Dreams. it starts out really cool. Like, the opening credits had me excited. The opening credits of this are awesome. It's moody, it's otherworldly, it's like, as soon as I saw the opening credits and I heard the music, I'm like, ooh, this is going to be a cool movie. And for the first half hour, 45 minutes, it does a really solid job creating this ultra surreal atmosphere, and it's like you're in a dream watching this film, which is what it should be. As soon as you hit the plot point where Annette Bening starts going crazy, and there's all this stuff with apples, and she's going paranoid, it started on a promising note, but then the crazier Annette Bening's character gets, the less coherent this gets, because the plot just starts to get really confusing, especially when she gets into the institution. And finally, towards the end, when they reveal Robert Downey Jr. as the killer, he's really weird, and it just doesn't seem to fit the movie that had been building up. And the final scene of this was 100% had to be tacked on by the studio, because you sit through this, that's mostly a psychological thriller drama. There's a heavy drama feeling to it, thriller too, but you get to the final scene, it feels so tacked on. It's like out of a slasher film, like that, like the final bit, it did not fit at all. So it's a weird jumble of a movie. The first 45 minutes start out really strong, but it gets weird after that, so it's okay. I mean, I give a movie credit for trying to make apples scary. They try to do this, like, Snow White parallel with the play. It's a weird one. And ending on a negative here, I hated this. I love Martin Lawrence. Blue Streak. I'm a big fan of Wild Hogs. I know a lot of people aren't. I like Martin Lawrence a lot. I love Steve Zahn. Joyride. Saving Silverman. 8-Bit Christmas. Steve Zahn is great. I'm like, oh, a buddy movie, action, oh, Martin Lawrence, Steve Zahn, oh, National Security, let's check it out. This movie's fucking terrible. It's a race-baiting, beating you over the head movie. Martin Lawrence is the lead. His character is the most unlikable douchebag I've ever seen in a movie like this, who is bluntly racist. There's every single line of dialogue out of his mouth. Every single sentence either begins or ends with, well, is it because I'm black? Or if you're black, I swear to God, this is the most racially baited film with no substance. Eric Roberts is your villain. He doesn't have jack shit to do, but besides have bleached blonde hair. And watching the stuff Steve Zahn has to go through because of Martin Lawrence, just the way this unfolds, it's like, no. Especially in today's climate with the news and real world events that have happened. You know, like Laquan McDonald, George Floyd, and then you watch a movie like this, it's like, what the fuck? Like, this was terrible. I got nothing out of this one, guy. I'm sorry. And even the action bits, there's really nothing to them. I did not like this one, guy. It was an annoying, irritating watch. I'm like, oh, I'm surprised I made it through it. I've been wanting to rewatch this show for a while, so I finally got it. It was only a couple bucks, so I'm like, let's rewatch the first season of Home Improvement. Show I always enjoy. You know, I like Tim Allen. I could leave politics out of everything. I like this. I enjoy Last Man Standing. I don't watch that religiously, but whenever I catch it, I enjoy it. And the first season of Home Improvement was pretty fun. You know, the episodes all, since it's the first season, there's a lot of very basic sitcom, tropey plots. They're all, you know, simple stuff that you've seen before. But it sets a solid basis for the show. I especially like the episode where they brought Bob Vila into there and they had a quarrel with him. That was pretty fun. I wouldn't mind picking up more of this in the future. I like Home Improvement. The first season's a fun one. Entertaining. This was $1. I heard good things, so I got the Michael Chiklis show, The Commish. I've only gotten 2 discs into this. I haven't watched all of them. But it's a fun show. You know, it's a cop drama show, but there's definitely a humorous element to it with the completely unconventional ways Michael Chiklis takes care. Like in the, I think it was the pilot, he convinces the guy they have a lie detector that like senses when he's lying, or he's blown his nose, he convinces this guy he has a cold. So, you know, it's fun stuff in there. It didn't make me want to binge it or anything like that. It deals with some heavy topics, but it's a fun show. Michael Chiklis, a lot of fun. He's got a strong personality. This might be the most New York show that I've ever seen with everyone's accents, but for $1 that this cost me, why not? And this was also $1. I don't know why the hell I got this. Ed Begley Jr. is an actor I like. He's popped up in a lot of films I like. You know, he's the kind of guy, every time he shows up something, it's like, oh, hey, it's Ed Begley Jr. You know, this was $1, and I never knew this existed. I was like, Ed Begley Jr. had a reality show? So I thought it might be silly and random enough to the point where this would be really entertaining and enjoyable. It's called Living with Ed. It's the first season, and it comes in this recycled, like, biodegradable case, which is interesting. The show is mostly told from his wife's point of view of just dealing with his quirks and stuff. Jay Leno makes an appearance on an episode that's pretty cool, but $1, I was curious, but I don't know why I bought it. They're really not that. I watched all 7 episodes. They're only 20 minutes each, so I got through it pretty quick, but I'm like, I really didn't need that. And as you've seen with the past couple updates, I am continuing my way through It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. I've got season 6 and 7 right here. Great episodes on both. Like season 6, I love the episode where they buy the boat. Really funny one. Or Dennis getting divorced from his crazy cat lady wife that he had a one-night stand with. Or the season finale was pretty sweet too, where Dee gave birth and all of her ex-boyfriends showed up. That was fun. Season 7 had what was the name of that? Like Turbo. What was the name of that episode? Thunder Gun Express. That was my favorite episode from this season. Thunder Gun Express. That one was great, where they're all racing trying to get to this movie. They have the 2-part high school reunion episode that's crazy, that's fun, that it kind of plays out like a soap opera. You know, I greatly enjoy this show. I'm glad I jumped on the bandwagon and started watching it. R-rated Seinfeld, I think, is a good way to quote this show. So yeah, I'm going to continue buying these seasons. It's a fun, I really enjoy It's Always Sunny. Alright guys, April 1st, movie collection update in the bag. I know this was a bit of a longer one, but I had some interesting stuff to talk about, so thank you all very much for watching. Comment below, let me know if you've seen any of these movies, or if any of them sound interesting to you. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, let me know. Feel free to look me up on Instagram, all that fun stuff, and yeah, take care. Happy April. Got a lot of stuff coming up very soon. Look for a lot of videos coming up, especially towards the end of this month. I'll have a lot coming your way as far as just random content goes. And yeah, thank you all for watching. We will see you all later. Hope you all have a wonderful spring.